Chapter 17 of The Ghosts of Tupelo Landing, Spitting Image. Harm stood waiting for us Monday morning at the bicycle rack, a definite surprise. "Hey, ghoul girl," he said. Not a surprise. I nudged my bike into the rack. "Hey yourself, ghost bait, what's up?" "Shh," he said, his gaze lingering on Attila and Hannah, who leaned against an oak tree chatting. "Don't call me that," he said, "and nothing's up. I mean, nobody's pressed charges," which was nice. I appreciated. Thess blasted past. "Going to storm tonight," he said. 80% chance, and a cool front drifting down. But no snow. It's way too early for snow." "Thanks, Thess," I said, and he trotted away. I looked at Harm. Thess is weather obsessed. There's no way to stop him, so Miss Lana says to just thank him. Dale jammed his bike in the rack. "Hey, Harm, you want to talk ghosts? Because ours likes you, and as ghost bait for our interview, you got a right to ask." Harm crossed his arms. "You want me to help with your paper?" he asked, and we nodded. "Sure, I'll do it. Cost you $100, he said. $100, I said. "We don't have that kind of money." "Your call. You can get back to me," he said, slipping back into his smirk. Just like that. "You got your interview questions?" he asked. "After what I saw Saturday, I'm thinking they better be darned good ones." "We've got them," I said. "You first." To my surprise, he opened his notebook. "Questions for Red Baker. 1. What's your earliest memory of your father, Mr. Truman Baker? 2. What did Truman's distillery smell like and how did it work? 3. How did Truman's business affect local culture and commerce?" "Fancy words and good questions," Dale said. "Miss Retzel will like those." Harm closed his notebook and stuffed it in his pack. They're only good questions if Red answers them. And since he hasn't actually agreed to an interview, I see an F in my future. Dale shook his head. He won't want a grandson to flunk. He tilted his head like a curious owl. "Funny, I never knew Mr. Red had a grandson. And I've been knowing him all my life." "Well, you got me beat," Harm said. "I only met him at the auction." My stomach fluttered like I'd stepped in an elevator going down too fast. He just met him? What if I met Upstream Mother and she turned out to be like Red Baker? "So that's why Mr. Red dressed up for the auction," Dale said, his voice going soft. "To meet you. That was nice of him." "Charming," Harm said. "What about you, ghost girl? You got questions?" I knew them by heart. 1. What's your name? 2. What happened to you? 3. How much allowance do you get in the next world? "Allowance," Dale said, pulling a crumpled paper out of his pocket. "Good." He smoothed his paper against his leg and read out his questions. 1. Why are you still here? 2. Do you get lonely? 3. Do you dream about people you used to know? Sometimes it surprises me the things Dale thinks about. "Pathetic," Attila said, brushing by. "Maybe you should try these. 1. Who do I think I'm kidding? 2. Am I lying through my teeth? 3. How many times will I repeat 6th grade? She shot us a withering glare. "My paper's done. I only need to print it." "Like we care, Metal Mouth," Harm said. He looked sheepish as she stomped away. "I guess I'd have braces too if I could afford them," he said. "Flick said a good smile's worth thousands of dollars later in life." "Listen," he said. "What are you two doing this afternoon? Because I actually would like to talk about things." "We're going to Grandmother Miss Lacey's with our latest batch of film." "I'm not," Dale said, backing away. "Not if you're carrying ghost film." "You're just scared to look a ghost in the eye," I said. "But you are too going. If Miss Retzel asks you about developing film, you've got to answer. Besides, Grandmother Miss Lacey's not feeling good. It would be a good social skill to pay her a call." For a split second, I thought Harm would ask to come along. Then, "Thank her for me," he said, "for not pressing charges against Red. Thank Miss Lana, too." Thank them yourself, I said, and headed up the steps. That afternoon, Dale and I stood on Grandmother Miss Lacey's porch, shivering in a chill wind. Thess had nailed it, cold front. I knocked on the carved front door. Dale stared at Queen Elizabeth hard enough to bend spoons. "Sit," he said. To my shock, she plopped down by the door. "Good girl, I can't believe you came to school," he told her, ruffling her ears. "She's never done that before, Mo." "She's brilliant," I lied, and knocked again. "Miss Thornton's yellow pansies look good," he said, peering at the wide-faced little flowers. "Mama says they're tougher than they look." The door creaked open. "I thought I heard voices," Miss Lana said. "Miss Thornton's in the parlor. The doctor told her to rest and avoid stress. She's bored out of her mind. She'll be glad to see you." She kissed my face. "Don't let her get too excited, though, sugar," she said, and hurried toward the cafe. "Too excited?" Dale echoed. "What does that mean exactly?" "No dark room," I said, and he smiled like I had yanked him out of detention. "You go on in," he said. "I'll be here after Liz settles in." I found Grandmother Miss Lacey thumbing through a photo album. She sat with a green shawl draped over her thin shoulders, her blue hair glinting in the glow of the fireplace. I knocked on the door casing. "Mo! Thank heavens! I'm bored within an inch of my life. Sit down and talk to me." I filled her in on school faster than lavender at the racetrack. Word problems, analogies, book reports. Plus, I shot more film for history, I told her. But it can wait. Finally, we turned to Mr. Red Baker and his fake ghost. I've known Red Baker all my life, and he has never made me so furious, she fumed, as Dale tiptoed by, cradling something in his arms. What did he hope to accomplish by scaring our workers away? He doesn't need land for his pigs. You're right, I said. He's up to something. Red's been up to something since birth, she said, and then laughed like water breaking through a dam. She reached for her album and thumbed through the pages. I have a photo I'd like you to see. I peeped at the pages. Here I am with Father's Duesenberg, she said, showing me a black and white of a short, bird-like girl and a long, pale car. She turned the page. And this blur in knickers is Red Baker. She flipped the page. Here's a rare image of him standing still. I peered at the photo as Dale walked into the room, holding a clear bowl of suspiciously familiar yellow pansies. I hope you'll feel better soon, he said, trying not to slosh water on the floor. Grandmother Miss Lacey blinked at her own pansies. Thank you, dear, she said. They'd look best on the marble-top table, perhaps. I turned back to the old photo of Mr. Red as a boy. Black hair, thin face. He wore a long-sleeved shirt and tie, knickers and argyles, socks. He held a cap in his hand and stood lanky as a coyote, his thin shoulders sloping a modicum to the left. That's Red Baker, I asked. He's a dead ringer for Harm Crenshaw. Or the other way around, Dale said, peering at the photo. She laughed. Took me a while to place Harm the day we drove to the auction, but you're right. Harm's the spitting image of his grandfather. People say that like it's nothing, being the spitting image of somebody else. Can I borrow this, I asked. I suppose, she said, sliding it out and handing it to me. I'll want it back, though, she added as the phone jangled. Could you get that, dear? It's probably another azalea woman calling to see if I'm dying, and if so, who's in the will. Take a message, she called as I trotted down the hall. I'll return calls tomorrow. I swept into the kitchen. The supper plate Miss Lana had brought over rested on the counter, covered with a neat white napkin. I grabbed the phone, the antique kind that clings to the wall. Grandmother Miss Lacey's residence, honorary granddaughter Mo Lobo speaking, I said. Who? A woman said. Mo Lobo, co-founder of Desperado Detective Agency. Who is this? Miss Filch, manager at State Bank, calling for Lacey Thornton. I frowned. The old, I got a title and you don't trick. I'd used it before, mostly on third graders. Greetings, Filch, I replied. Miss Thornton is resting. I am Miss Lobo, her ambassador. May I help you?" "I need her, sweetie. Call her to the phone." I smiled so wide my lips hurt, in case Miss Lana was right and smiling might put Filch in a better mood. "I can take a message. She'll call you." She huffed like she could blow my house down. "Tell her Miss Filch called. Again. Tell her we still have not received payment. Tell her she needs to call me by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, or I'll start the paperwork. Understand?" I gasped. "Paperwork? What's going on?" The phone went dead in my hand.